Let's go back to December. It is deep winter in Colorado Springs, the kind of cold that hurts your face, where the air is so thin and sharp it feels like it could cut you. The mountains are just massive shadows against the black sky. It is the 19th of December, 2023. I want you to imagine the silence of that night. It is that heavy, muffled silence that comes after a snowstorm. The world feels paused. In a quiet condo complex on Palomino Ranch Point, most people are asleep. It is the week before Christmas. There are colorful lights strung up on balconies. There are gifts hidden in closets. It is supposed to be the safest, warmest time of the year. But at 12:29 a.m., that safety breaks. A call comes into the 911 dispatch center, and the voice on the other end isn't just scared. It is shattered. It is a woman. She is frantic. She is breathless. She tells the dispatcher that someone is in her house. A burglar. A stranger. She says he is hurting them. She says he is attacking her family. Now put yourself in the shoes of the police officers responding to that call. You are driving fast on icy roads, tires crunching on the packed snow. Your heart is pounding because calls involving children are different. They hit harder. They make your stomach drop. You pull up to the complex. It is dark. The snow on the ground is fresh, white, perfect. You rush to the door. You expect to see chaos. You expect to see a broken window, a kicked-in door, splinters of wood on the floor. You expect to see heavy footprints running away into the dark, marking the escape of a violent man. But look at the ground. The snow is smooth. It is unbroken. It is a pristine white sheet. There are no footprints leaving the house. There are no tire tracks speeding away. There is nothing. That is the first thing that feels wrong. Just a tiny prickle on the back of your neck. A question that forms instantly in your mind. If a bad guy broke in, and if he ran away, how did he leave without touching the ground? But there is no time to think about that yet. You have to go inside. You have to save the kids. So you breach the door, and the air inside is warm, but it smells like iron. It smells like copper. It smells like blood. You find the mother, Kimberlee Singler. She is 35 years old. She looks terrified. She is bleeding. She has cuts on her body. She is holding her 11-year-old daughter, who is also hurt, also screaming. It looks like a war zone. Kimberlee is crying, pointing, saying he went that way, saying he attacked them. But then you go further into the home. You go to the bedroom, and everything stops, because lying there are Ileana and Aiden. She was 9, he was 7, and they aren't moving. The silence in that room is heavier than the snow outside. It is the kind of silence that stays with you forever. It is the sound of a timeline ending abruptly. This is where our story begins. Not with the arrest, but with the confusion. A mother claiming a monster broke in. A scene that is horrific. And a blanket of snow outside that is whispering the first terrible clue that nobody left this house. So the ambulances come. The lights are flashing, cutting through the dark. It is pure chaos for a few minutes. Kimberlee and her surviving daughter are rushed to the hospital. The sirens fade into the distance. But the house stays behind. And now the detectives take over. This is the part of the story where the emotion has to be put in a box. To do this job, you have to turn off your heart and turn on your eyes. You have to stop seeing a home and start seeing a puzzle. So they start walking through the rooms. Remember the story about the burglar, the stranger in the night. Usually when a stranger breaks into a house to do something this terrible, they leave a mess. They are frantic. They kick in a door. They shatter a window. They track in mud and snow because they are running on adrenaline. But here, the front door is fine. The lock isn't broken. The back door is secure. The windows are untouched. It looks less like a crime scene and more like a stage set where the actors just forgot to mess up the props. And then there are the valuables. The TV is sitting right there. The laptops are on the table. Her purse is visible. Nothing is missing. You have to ask yourself, if a man breaks into a house in the middle of the night, assaults a family, and steals nothing, why was he there? To kill, maybe. But if his goal was to kill, why leave the mother alive? Why leave a witness who could identify him? The detectives go back to that snow outside. They walk in circles around the building. They bring in K9 units, dogs that can smell fear and flight from miles away. But the dogs are confused. They sniff the ground, they circle, and they sit. There is no scent trail leading away. It's like the attacker just evaporated into the thin mountain air. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the doctors are cleaning Kimberlee's wounds. And you have to understand, emergency room doctors see everything. They know the difference. They know what it looks like when you are fighting for your life against a knife. You put your hands up to protect your face. You get slashed on the palms, on the outside of your forearms. It's messy. It's defensive. But Kimberlee's cuts, they are strange. They are shallow. Some are perfectly straight. Some are in places that are hard for an attacker to reach, but very easy for you to reach yourself. In the medical world, they hesitate to say it out loud at first, but they know what these look like. They look self-inflicted. It's the body telling the truth that the mouth won't admit. And then the most heartbreaking crack in the story appears. The surviving daughter. She is 11 years old. She is sitting in a hospital bed, traumatized, probably in shock. At first, when the police ask her what happened, she nods along with her mom. Yes, a man. Yes, he hurt us, because she's a kid. And her mom is her protector. Her mom is the only thing she has left. But then the protocol kicks in. The police separate them, just for a moment, just to talk to the child alone, to be gentle, to get the details right. And when the mom isn't there to hold her hand, the story starts to change. The little girl gets quiet. She looks down at the hospital sheets, and she whispers something that changes the entire case from a hunt for a killer to something much darker. She says there was no man, just like that. 4 words, and the air leaves the room. When an 11-year-old child says something like that, the room doesn't just get quiet. It gets cold. The detectives lean in. They don't want to push, but they need to know. If there was no man, they ask gently, then who hurt you? And the girl tells them. She talks about her mother. She talks about a change in her eyes. She says her mom was moving through the house, not scared but focused. And then she repeats the words her mother said right before the violence started. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a whisper. She said, "God is telling me to do this." That is the moment the investigation flips upside down. The police stop looking for a predator outside the house and realize the predator was inside the whole time. Suddenly, the timeline makes sense. The lack of footprints makes sense. The shallow wounds on Kimberlee's arms make sense. So the detectives leave the hospital and go back to the station. They start digging into the background. They pull up the files on Kimberlee Singler. And what they find is a war. Not a war with guns, but a war with paper. A divorce. For years, Kimberlee and her ex-husband, Kevin, had been fighting. It was ugly. It was bitter. But it had reached a boiling point. Just days before the murders, a judge had made a ruling. The court had ordered Kimberlee to hand the children over to their father. She was losing control. The deadline was approaching. December 19th wasn't a random date. It was the end of the line. You can almost see the panic rising in her mind. To some people, losing custody feels like dying. And for Kimberlee, it seems she decided that if she couldn't keep them, no one would. By December 26th, a week after the bodies were found, the police have enough. They have the daughter's testimony. They have the forensic evidence. They go to a judge and get a warrant for her arrest. Charges of first-degree murder. They drive to her condo. They are ready to bring her in. They are ready to look her in the eye and ask her why. They knock on the door. No answer. They knock harder. Silence. They force entry. In the house is empty. The closets are open. The essentials are gone. There is no Kimberlee Singler. While the police were building their case, while the community was lighting candles for her tragic loss, she was making moves. She wasn't grieving. She was packing. She had slipped through their fingers like smoke. And now the local police weren't just looking for a murderer. They were chasing a ghost who had a 7-day head start. You have to pause and think about the audacity of this. Most people, when they run from the law, they panic. They drive until the gas runs out. They hide in a motel 3 towns over. They make mistakes because they are scared. But Kimberlee didn't do that. She didn't panic. She planned. While the detectives were waiting for the forensic reports, while the ink was drying on that arrest warrant, Kimberlee was moving with a terrifying kind of calm. She didn't head for the state line. She headed for the airport. She walked into Denver International Airport. It's a busy place, full of holiday travelers, families hugging, people going home for Christmas. She blended right in. She had her passport. She had her ticket. She probably bought a coffee. She walked through security, took off her shoes, put her bag on the belt, just like everyone else. Nobody knew. The TSA agent checking her ID didn't know that this woman was leaving behind 2 dead children in a condo 40 miles south. They just waved her through. She boarded a flight, and while the police were knocking on her empty front door in Colorado Springs, Kimberlee Singler was 30,000 feet in the air, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. She wasn't running to Mexico or Canada. She was going to London. Why London? We don't know for sure yet. Maybe she thought she could blend in. Maybe she thought the ocean was big enough to wash away what happened. Maybe she just wanted to be as far away from that snowy driveway as possible. So the search radius expands. It goes from a neighborhood search to a state search to a federal manhunt. The FBI gets involved. Interpol gets involved. Her face, that suburban mom face that looks so normal in photos, gets flashed on screens in police stations across Europe. For a few days, she is a ghost. She lands in the UK. She navigates the underground. She finds a place to stay. But you can't run forever in a world connected by cameras and data. On December 30th, the call comes in. She isn't hiding in a dark alley. She is in the Kensington area of London. If you know London, you know Kensington. It's posh. It's wealthy. It's full of museums and high-end shops. It is a place for tourists and royalty. The British police move in. They find her at a hotel. They put the handcuffs on her. And just like that, the chase is over. But the waiting game is just beginning. Because catching her was the easy part. Getting her back, that was going to be a nightmare. She was thousands of miles away on foreign soil, and she wasn't going to come home without a fight. You might think that once the handcuffs click shut, the story ends. The bad guy is caught. Justice is served. Roll credits. But in the real world, the law is slow. It is agonizingly slow. Kimberlee Singler is sitting in a cell in London. Outside, it's raining. It's a different world from the sunny, snowy peaks of Colorado. And she decides she isn't going back. Not voluntarily. This begins the war of paperwork. Extradition isn't as simple as putting someone on a plane. It is a diplomatic dance. The United States has to ask the United Kingdom for permission to take her back. And Kimberlee has lawyers. Good ones. They start throwing everything at the wall. They argue about human rights. They argue that the American prison system is too harsh. They file appeal after appeal. Back in Colorado, the seasons are changing. The snow melts. The spring comes. The summer heat hits the pavement. And still, she is in London. Imagine being Kevin Wentz. He is the father. He is the man who was supposed to pick up his kids that week. He is the man who has to walk past their empty bedrooms every single day. He knows who did it. The police know who did it. The whole world knows who did it. But he can't get closure because the person responsible is sitting in a British detention center, filing motions. 2024 drags on. It is a whole year of silence. The news cycle moves on to other stories. The yellow police tape comes down from the condo. People in the neighborhood stop talking about it in hushed tones and start forgetting. But the detectives don't forget. The prosecutors don't forget. They are on Zoom calls at 3:00 a.m. because of the time difference, arguing with British judges. They are sending terabytes of evidence across the ocean. They are proving over and over again that this wasn't a political crime. It wasn't a mistake. It was a cold-blooded double murder. It's a grinding machine. It eats up time. It eats up patience. And all the while, Kimberlee sits there. She is thousands of miles away from the crime scene. Does she think she's going to win? Does she think she can stay in London forever? Or is she just trying to delay the inevitable? Is she just trying to buy one more day, one more week, before she has to face the reality of that empty house? Finally, the calendar flips to late 2025. The appeals run out. The British courts finally look at the stack of evidence, the fake burglary, the lack of footprints, the daughter's testimony, and they nod. They sign the paper. The delay is over. So a few days ago, the final act of this long, strange intermission played out. It is December again, almost exactly 2 years since the murders. The weather in Colorado is turning cold again, the cycle repeating itself. Kimberlee Singler is taken out of her cell in London. But this time, she isn't walking out into the Kensington rain to grab a coffee. She is in shackles. She is flanked by U.S. Marshals. These are the guys who don't make small talk. They are the professionals who specialize in moving people who don't want to be moved. They drive her to Heathrow Airport. Think about the last time she was there. She was rushing through the terminal, heart pounding, looking over her shoulder, but she was free. She was holding a ticket she bought herself. She was choosing her destiny. This time, she has no choice. She is loaded onto a plane. It's a long flight back across the Atlantic. 10, maybe 11 hours. You have to wonder what goes through a person's mind in a seat like that. You are flying back toward the scene of the crime. You are flying back to the empty rooms. You are flying back to a life in a cage. There is no burglar story to save her now. There is no intruder to blame. The distance she put between herself and Colorado has evaporated. The plane touches down on American soil. The tires screech on the tarmac. For the passengers in first class or economy, it's just the end of a trip. For Kimberlee, it's the end of her life as she knew it. She is escorted off the plane. The air is different here. It's dry. It's American air. She is handed over to the local authorities. They take her to the El Paso County Jail. It's a stark, concrete building. It smells like industrial cleaner and old food. They take her fingerprints. They take her mugshot. And that photo, it's important because for 2 years, the only photos the public saw were the nice ones. The Facebook photos, the smiling mom with her kids, the before pictures. Now we see the after. The face of a woman who ran, who hid, and who lost. She is booked on charges that make you shudder just reading them. 2 counts of first-degree murder. 1 count of attempted murder for the daughter who survived. Child abuse. Assault. She is given a jumpsuit. She is given a cell number. The door clanks shut, and for the first time since that night in December 2023, Kimberlee Singler is exactly where the evidence says she belongs. The ghost is back in the machine. Now that she is back, the theater of the courtroom begins. And this is a very different kind of drama than the one she tried to direct in her living room. When you walk into an arraignment for a case like this, the air is thick. It's heavy. You have the press in the back row, scribbling in notebooks. You have the families, broken, angry, grieving, sitting on the wooden benches. And then you have the defendant. Kimberlee stands before the judge. She isn't the frantic victim anymore. She isn't the international fugitive. She is just defendant Singler. The prosecutor starts reading the list, and it goes on and on. First-degree murder. That's the big one. That means premeditation. That means the state believes she didn't just snap. They believe she thought about this. She planned it. She looked at her children and decided their fate before she ever picked up a weapon. Then attempted murder. That's for the 11-year-old, the one who survived, the one who had to lie in a hospital bed and tell the police that her own mother was the monster in the dark. And then the other charges. Child abuse. Assault. It's a laundry list of betrayal. As these charges are read, you have to look at the context. This wasn't a stranger. This wasn't a random act. This was a breach of the most fundamental contract in human existence. The contract between a mother and her children. The judge denies bail. Obviously, she's already proven she's a flight risk. She practically wrote the textbook on how to flee the jurisdiction, so she is remanded back to custody. This moment, the clinking of the shackles as she is led out of the courtroom, is crucial because it signifies the shift. For 2 years, she controlled the narrative. She controlled where she was. She controlled who she talked to. Now she controls nothing. She is property of the state of Colorado. And outside the courthouse, the community exhales. There is a sense of relief, yes, but there is also a lingering horror. Because now that she is back, we have to face the details. We have to sit through a trial. We have to hear the forensics. We have to hear about the weapon. We have to hear about the clean snow all over again. The mystery is solved. We know who, but the courtroom is where we are going to try to answer the question that keeps everyone awake at night. Why? What happens in a human brain that turns a custody dispute into a double homicide? The biggest question in a room like that isn't how. We know how. We have the physics of it. The biggest question is why. When you look at a crime like this, your brain tries to find a reason that makes sense. Was it drugs? Was it a psychotic break? Was it a sudden fit of rage? But the prosecutors are going to tell a different story. They are going to talk about something much colder. They are going to talk about control. You see, Kimberlee Singler wasn't fighting a demon in her head. She was fighting a court order. For years, she and her ex-husband, Kevin, were locked in what we call high-conflict litigation. If you've ever been near a divorce like that, you know it's toxic. It eats people alive. It becomes a zero-sum game. Every win for him was a loss for her. The timeline is the smoking gun here. The murders happened on December 19th. Do you know what was supposed to happen on December 20th? Or the week after? She was losing them. The court had ordered a change in parenting time. The police were getting involved to enforce custody orders. The walls were closing in on her territory. And this is where the psychology gets terrifying. There is a specific kind of mindset in these cases. It's the idea of possession. Children aren't seen as little people with their own futures. They are seen as assets. They are seen as pieces on a chessboard. And if a player feels like the game is lost, if they feel like the other side is going to win those pieces, sometimes they decide to flip the board. It's the ultimate act of spite. If I can't be their mother, then you can't be their father. The prosecution is going to lay this out. They will show the emails. They will show the text messages. They will show the desperate legal filings. They will paint a picture of a woman who was so obsessed with winning the war against her ex-husband that she decided to destroy the prize rather than hand it over. And the defense, what can they say? They might talk about stress. They might talk about mental health. They might say she was under a pressure that broke her reality. But then the jury will have to look at the flight to London. Because people who have a psychotic break usually don't remember to bring their passport. People who are out of their minds with grief usually don't manage to navigate international customs. The flight proves she was thinking. The flight proves she was calculating. And that calculation is what turns a tragedy into a monstrosity. While the lawyers argue and the papers shuffle, we have to remember who is left standing in the wreckage. There is a father in this story, Kevin Wentz. For 2 years, he has been living a nightmare that most of us can't even wrap our heads around. He didn't just lose his children. He lost them to the person who was supposed to co-parent them. He lost them to the woman he once shared a life with. And he didn't just lose Ileana and Aiden. He nearly lost his oldest daughter, too. Let's talk about her, the survivor. She is 13 now, but back then she was 11. She is the only person on Earth, besides her mother, who knows exactly what happened in that condo. She saw the switch flip. She felt the violence, and she had to summon a courage that no child should ever have to find. The courage to tell the truth about her own mother. In the upcoming trial, she is going to be the linchpin. Can you imagine the weight of that? A teenager having to walk into a courtroom, sit on a witness stand, look across the aisle at her mother, the woman who gave her birth, the woman who raised her, and point a finger. The prosecution needs her testimony, but every word she speaks is going to be a reopening of a wound that has barely started to scab over. And for Kevin, the father, the job is impossible. He has to be a grieving dad for the 2 who are gone, and a rock-solid support system for the one who is still here. He has to rebuild a family unit that has been bombed out from the inside. He has to answer the questions that come in the middle of the night. He has to explain why mom is in jail. He has to explain why Ileana and Aiden aren't coming back. The house on Palomino Ranch Point is just a building now. Someone else probably lives there, or maybe it sits empty. But for Kevin and his daughter, the layout of those rooms is burned into their memories. This case isn't just about a verdict. It's about survival. It's about how you wake up the next morning, and the morning after that, when the person who tried to destroy you is your own mother. It is a study in resilience, but it is a painful, quiet, everyday kind of resilience that doesn't make the headlines. So here we are, the end of the chase, but the beginning of the reckoning. Kimberlee Singler is in a cell in Colorado. The lawyers are sharpening their pencils. The court dates are being set. The cameras are going to be set up in the back of the room again. But as we watch this play out on the news, as we watch the legal system try to process something this broken, we have to be careful. We have to be careful not to let the spectacle erase the reality. Justice is a tricky word in a case like this. We tend to think justice means a guilty verdict. We think it means a life sentence. And sure, that's part of it. That's the part the state can provide. But real justice would be Ileana and Aiden waking up in their beds. Justice would be a 13-year-old girl not having to carry the memory of that night for the rest of her life. And that is the one thing the court can't give. That's the tragedy of true crime. We can solve the puzzle. We can catch the runner. We can bring her back from London in handcuffs. But we can't undo the silence in that house. As the snow falls again this winter in Colorado Springs, the world keeps turning. The neighbors will shovel their driveways. The Christmas lights will go up and come down. But for the people who loved those kids, time is split into two parts, before December 19th and after. The story of the burglar is gone. The story of the intruder is dead. All that is left is the truth. It's a hard, jagged truth about what happens when love is replaced by possession, and when a parent decides that winning is more important than living. So we will watch the trial. We will listen to the evidence. We will see the photos. But let's not forget the silence that started it all. The silence of a snow-covered yard where no footprints led away, because the danger was already home.